County. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. Politically Speaking is a program about our local issues and conversations with our local politicians. And today we have Warden Buck Hicks of Grey County and Director of Community Services Anne-Marie Shaw. And we're going to be talking about housing and a whole bunch of other things, I'm quite sure. So, welcome to both of you. Good to have you, Anne-Marie. I think this is the first time you've been on Politically Speaking, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but Buck, it's good to have you back again.
Great to be back.
Now, I want to go right off the top and say to Anne-Marie, congratulations on your new portfolio. You were Director of Housing, and you are now Director of Community Services, I understand, responsible for both housing and social services.
That is correct. Thank you. Yes, Barb Fady, who has worked for the county for 30 years, is retiring, and we're looking to combine the two departments. Just makes sense. We're all community services, and at the provincial level, a lot of the services are combined at that level too. So it makes sense. But thank you very much.
Now, if I understand from what Barb has told me, there's a lot of big changes happening at the provincial level, which you just alluded to, housing and social services being combined. And it sounds like there's some really interesting and positive things happening at the provincial level.
There are. So the province is looking at integration of services. So a lot of people that may live in housing may also require childcare, may use some of our other services. So even though the services are still going to be run by different ministries, so there's going to be still the Ministry of Community and Social Services, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and some of the Ministry of Education. So there's going to be, even though there's some different ministries happening, they're starting to align their services. We've been doing it at the local level for many years, but now the ministry is starting to have those integrated meetings too. So it is very exciting. There's also looking at modernization of a lot of the services that are happening. So modernizing housing, modernizing the way Ontario Works goes, some of our childcare centers and childcare services. So lots of good things happening at the provincial level for sure.
It sounds like they're taking the philosophy of no wrong door very seriously.
They certainly are. And we've been lucky in the housing circle, working within our community and looking at housing and homelessness services, and then that supportive housing, that has been happening through some of the information and some of the services that has come down from the province. So, for instance, our by names list in working with people that are experiencing homelessness. There is no wrong door in the local services. So it's going to be nice if that's actually happening at the provincial level too.
Now, Buck, you're nodding your head and smiling. Are you pleased with these developments?
Well, I have to tell you, David, the one piece that I'm really excited about under modernization, and I think we spoke about this before, if I'm not incorrect, is that the role of our traditional social services worker is going to go back to a more traditional role. So the province is proposing to take on all of the administration, or a lot of the administration, so the paperwork, the intake, that sort of thing, freeing up our workers to be able to provide supportive services. So people need help with employment or connecting with other services, sort of the more traditional role that you expected a social services worker to play and what they played in the past. They'll be going back to their traditional roots. I know they're excited about it, but as a representative, I can tell you I'm excited because it means that resources will be freed up to help people who have all kinds of needs, more than just processing checks.
You know, I'm also glad to hear that, because I know that the skill and expertise of people who work for the county in the area of social services is phenomenal. They do a tough job. and they're also highly skilled, and I hope that this will give them the opportunity to put those skills into practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you're nodding your head too, Anne Marie. It's you're at the top of the pyramid, so to speak. Are you looking forward to this change?
Yes, it's great. So they're looking at what the province is calling it is life stabilization. So looking at how they can work better with someone to make sure that they have all that they need in order to be successful. So for instance, if someone is requiring identification, pointing in the right direction to get that. If they need housing, it'd be a referral to housing. If they need some mental health supports, it'd be a referral. And again, it's not just, here's the number. It would be that, how can we assist you with making this meeting actually work? And so many other things. There's so many needs that a person may have to be able to, live to their fullest, that this extra time that workers will have to spend with their clients is going to be beneficial.
Sounds really interesting and really, really positive. Now, is this going to increase the, how shall I say it? But I'll use the word bureaucracy, or will this do something that I've seen actually in Grey County, coordination with other agencies? Which model will it be using?
Coordination, definitely. When we look at what the province is taking on, they're taking on all of that paperwork that they need in order to get their benefits, right? So there's still going to be some local cases that we would be working with, but the province is taking on that aspect of it. So that will then allow better relationship development between a worker and their client, and also reaching out to agencies. That's something that we do very well in Grey and Bruce counties, is working with our local agencies. We have great relationships. We have Poverty Task Force and other groups that allow us to sit at a table and figure out and find out exactly what we do and share what we do. So I think that the change is just going to be a benefit to both the worker and to our clients.
Do you see it the same way, Buck?
Oh, absolutely. I'm absolutely excited about this because it means that we have more resource to put towards helping people out of their circumstances. So right now, workers do a tough job, and they're consumed with the administration and the paperwork and the bureaucracy. And a lot of that is going to be taken from them so that they can now dedicate themselves to helping people, whether it be, helping with work, finding employment, or beefing up their resume, or connecting to other services that they really need. Right now, there's only a limited amount of time to dedicate to that, and they'll have a lot more time to dedicate towards helping people.
Yeah, Anne-Marie, you alluded to other agencies that are partners with the county, and I'm not sure people realize the role of the county, because it's not to do everything. It's almost a coordination job, isn't it?
It is. So as the county, we do have certain services that we're mandated to do. But then we also work with our community partners to ensure that there is usually a continuum of services that is available. So for instance, if we were looking at homelessness, we do fund our Y services in order to provide that actual service of assisting someone with emergency housing. We work with the Canadian Mental Health Association to help with people that maybe require supportive housing. We work with a number of agencies in which we either fund or have a partnership with, or do a shared service with. So we at the county don't do everything, but we certainly help to try coordinate services in the community where it's required.
And David, they really understand the network really, really well. So you can imagine that there are all of these things that are out there, and you basically are going to have like your social services Sherpa. So let me navigate you through this world of social services and help you to figure out what it is that you need and what's going to be best for you. That's going to be hugely helpful to people, I think.
Again, I wonder if people actually understand the scope of and the comprehensive nature of the services that are, provided. I recall many years ago when I was with on the board of Hope Grey Bruce. I was chair of the board, and the executive director at the time came in one day and plunked a whole big stack of papers in front of me and said, "We need you to sign this." And I said, "What are these?" "Leases. We have 84 apartments across Grey Bruce that we work to help house people, and you've got to sign, your name's going to be on the lease." Okay, so I got a little writer's cramp from doing it, but it was really an eye-opener to me. There is supportive housing here in Owen Sound and in Wyerton. There are things like second stage housing, so on and so forth. Excuse me. It's these kinds of things that are happening. I don't think people realize.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of great work being done by our agencies that if you don't use the services, then you're maybe just not aware that they are happening. Yeah, we're very thankful. We have a lot of wonderful agencies that go above and beyond with the work that they do for people.
And the other thing is that that coordination involves things like working with paramedics and police services, does it not?
It certainly can, yes. Right now, there's some really good work that's going on with our paramedics and public health and quite a few other agencies looking at setting up mobile clinics. So there's one in Owen Sound every 2 weeks and one in Hanover every 2 weeks, and it's looking at setting up a clinic so that there are all the services right in downtown Hanover or in downtown Owen Sound, and no matter what you may need on that day, you come to the clinic and have that one-on-one with someone. So if there's some sort of physical ailment that you may need help with, if there's mental health, addictions, if you need food, housing, socks, anything like that, there's a place for people to go to access. This has been fairly recent, and it's an excellent service. The mobile clinic is, I believe, seeing about 30 people in Hanover regularly and close to 90 in Owen Sound regularly.
And that is quite remarkable when you think about it. On one hand, it indicates the need, but it also indicates the success.
Definitely, that's right. It's been a big success for vulnerable people to have somewhere to go.
And David, in Grey and Bruce, we have a tremendous collaboration happening, and we saw evidence of that when we saw that process roll out for developing the community safety and well-being plans. Just a good group of people, particularly around the pandemic, have come together, have figured out, who needs to do what in order to make people's lives better. So that collaboration is going to be the key moving forward to getting people better, to getting people to the resources that they need, and to sort of making sure that we're not duplicating efforts. We're figuring out who does what best. So it's great. We've got a really good social services network in Grey and Bruce.
I noticed that in this very, very cold weather that we are experiencing, there have been announcements made about programs to help people who may be homeless, and it just lays it out. This is where you go. And it's very simple, very easy, and it appears to be well integrated.
Would you like me to take that one? Sure. Yes, 211. 211 is such a great resource, and they will assist if someone does find themselves without housing. If they do call 211, they will be able to help them find some emergency housing. Y Housing is the agency or community agency that we fund to provide emergency housing. They will contact the person the next day and try and figure out, a plan. I can say that the service is being used a lot more this year than in years past. In the last 2 years, we've seen significant increase in the need for emergency housing in our area.
David, I can't stress that 211 enough. Anne Marie knows that locally I had a priest who talked to me about the fact that he was approached by someone who was homeless, and he pulled out his personal credit card and said, I'm going to put you in a motel. And we said, you could have just picked up the phone and called 211. And they know the services extremely well, and we will get that person something if it's an emergency. They will get emergency assistance. So just spreading the word as much as possible that, if you know someone who needs things and you don't quite understand that system, pick up the phone and call 211 because they know.
Right. In fact, I was just going to ask, let's say I encounter someone who is homeless or asks for help. What do I do? Well, the answer is call 211.
That's right. That's right. It's not just homelessness services, it's any type of social service that they may need. And even beyond that, health services, 211 is amazing for providing that information.
Sure.
They're really like the Grey Bruce Google, aren't they?
Yeah.
It can be about anything. It could be, just about anything that has to do with Grey and Bruce. They will know it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really a helpful number to remember. So, friends, 211. If you have a question, 211. Not the other 11 number, but
Yes.
211. Well, let's move on to something a little bit different. Back in October, there was a survey of homelessness in Grey Bruce, and I did a column in the Sun-Times on this, and actually it's quite remarkable. Do you want to summarize some of the learnings, Anne Marie?
Sure, certainly. So we did a point-in-time count in Grey County. The province had asked all service managers, so there's 47 service managers throughout the province, so that we could provide information on, some of the statistics around people that are experiencing homelessness, and also provide information that can help us guide what services and supports we might need. So we did that on October 18th. We had 142 submissions from households indicating that they were experiencing some sort of homelessness. 74% of the respondents, so 52, indicated that they had been without safe or permanent housing for at least 6 months. And that does meet the definition of being what's considered being chronic homeless when a person is without housing for more than 6 months out of a year. It doesn't have to be in a row. We had 27 individuals that indicated that they were unsheltered, staying in encampments, or sleeping rough. So of course that would make them one of our primary focus towards our by name list. We had 58 people that disclosed they were staying with others. We had 9 that were either in hospital or treatment. We had 11 that were staying in a motel self-funded, and the county was funding 12. And then we also had 17 that did not disclose where they were staying for that night. But yes, 142 responses, very large number in our eyes. Certainly an increase year over year that we've been seeing since about 2019. We seem to be doubling our numbers each year. 2020 we did, and then 2021. This is a good snapshot, I think, of what is happening.
Were there any surprises?
Surprises. So we knew that we had an increase when we looked at the people that were accessing our emergency services for housing in 2019 compared to 2020. It practically doubled, and then from 20 to 21 it doubled again. So I think and same goes with people accessing other services such as food banks and other emergency services. So I don't think that it was a surprise to us. We were just, I think, very grateful to that and thankful that the respondents were willing to come forward and answer the survey questions for us so that we could get a better idea of what services were required.
Now, was this due to COVID, do you think, or was it just a multiplication of existing conditions?
I think a little bit of both. I think COVID has played a part in it. Whether it would have been loss of income or whether it's if you're living precariously, there may not be as many options. People may not be taking people in to live on their couch or in their extra room for a little bit. And also coping. All of us have had a hard time coping with COVID. And so I think if you're struggling, then COVID has certainly caused you to struggle more. So I think that there's certainly a correlation there.
I think the other thing that I saw that there was an interesting correlation between people with physical needs, mental health needs, and addictions.
That's true. So we look at, they call them the morbidities. So if you had more than one morbidity, then they're more likely that that person would experience homelessness. So there could be physical limitations or concerns. There could be mental health concerns or addictions. Those were the three that this survey kind of focused on. And certainly the more morbidities you had, then the more likelihood you were to experience homelessness.
Sure. Was there also a connection to income?
Certainly, I can just pull up some of the income. The respondents were primarily in receipt of a social assistance. So 57 were on social assistance, so Ontario Works, 47 on disability income, and that was 73% of all of our respondents. So certainly, definitely linked to income or lack thereof.
But what about the supply of housing?
Yes.
If you don't
supply
have
of housing.
the housing,
Sorry, I missed that.
if you don't have the housing, what can you do?
Yeah, certainly supply is definitely an issue. We have a very low vacancy rate, and we also know that rents are very high. No different than anywhere in Ontario, unfortunately, or even Canada for that matter. But so certainly that is a contributing factor to the fact that their supply is low and the rents are high.
Sure.
So if I might, Anne-Marie, what does the average person on Ontario Works receive monthly?
Ontario Works, yes, they would receive around that $874 a month, $884 a month. That's Ontario Disability, and it would be around the $600 mark for someone on OW. So with rents, the average one bedroom being $1,100, $1,200, it's not realistic to get a one bedroom. And even room rentals now we're seeing them around $700 to $800 a month. And if we look back 5 years ago, we didn't see the same rents. It's amazing what has happened in such a short period of time, that increase in rents. And I think that I call it the perfect storm between the fact that, Ontario Works and Ontario Disability have not seen increases in the amount of money that they receive, but yet our rents are going up significantly in such a short period of time.
So David, even for the people, like if you have income and you can pay the $1,200 a month on average, it's a struggle for those people to find because there's very little available. And so you can imagine for someone on a limited income of $874 or $600 a month, even if you could find something, you can't afford it. So therein lies the struggle.
Yeah.
And it plays into a whole bunch of other issues. Food security is another one. And I just did a little digging on this one and discovered that there's a direct correlation between being on ODSP and using food banks or food security programs.
Certainly, and we saw a huge increase in the number of people that were accessing our local OShare during COVID. It skyrocketed. The amount of people within 2020 that started using a food bank and continued. It did not go down. So it continued in 2022 or 21 and into 22. And We were very grateful. We did receive some funding from the province called the Social Services Relief Fund. So we were able to fund a lot of our local food banks to assist with that increase. But those funds aren't in existence anymore. They ended at the end of last year, at the end of 2021. So but the struggle still continues and the need still continues. So I think that we're going to see a need for more services, whether it's mental health, whether it's food security, whether it's housing. All of those are increasing, and I think we're still going to continue to see that even post-COVID.
Mm-hmm. What you mentioned something earlier on, the by name list. That's a new term. What's that?
So a by name list is a coordinated way of figuring out people in your community that require housing. So they may be experiencing, most of them are experiencing some sort of homelessness, whether it's sporadic, whether it is chronic homelessness. And what it does is it allows entry point at any agency. So for instance, we have a by name list steering committee, and we've done training with a lot of local agencies. So anyone who, whether you're at the hospital, whether you're at OSHARE, whether you're at Canadian Mental Health Association, you can make that warm transfer right into talking to somebody from our office, or even filling out paperwork at another office that gets you on this list. And what the list does is it allows us to put names to people, and it allows us to figure out what their individual needs are and how we can assist them. And then what it also does is allows us, if we do have vacancies and we have supports, it allows us to do that matching so that we can provide supportive housing for somebody that may need it so that they can maintain their housing. We're always looking for more supports and more housing as the list grows, but certainly we're trying to put that individual care plan in place for that person so that they're going to be successful.
Now, is there outreach? Are there outreach workers involved with the by name list?
Yes, there are. The county is funding and holding the coordinator's position, and then we have funded 2 outreach workers through the Canadian Mental Health Association. So certainly we're still in the process of putting that entire process together, looking for how do we find more units available and how do we find more support. So we're certainly don't have enough of either at this point. So we're looking at creative ways in which to increase both, and applying for funding to the Ministry of Health and others to assist with that. Council also passed a resolution in which we can look at our own housing list, providing 1 in 10 of our vacancies towards this program too, which will definitely assist.
Sure. Now, what's the difference between supportive housing and regular housing?
Well, there's different types. So regular housing, meaning, do you mean rent geared to income housing, like our housing that we provide at the county?
Sure. Actually, what I think I'm going to do, Anne-Marie, is we do have to go to break, but let's come back to that because I suspect that's going to go pretty deep into some weeds. Okay? Excuse me. Friends, I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience. And with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles. Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now. This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that. He'll be shining snow snakes and mudcats to the end of his days.
Hi, I'm Thomas Chase, a right wing with the Owens and Attack. Go behind the scenes with your favorite team on Attack Rap every Tuesday on Rogers TV.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guests today are the Warden of Grey County, Buck Hicks, and Anne-Marie Shaw, who is Director of Social Services. It's always our community services. Sorry, not social. That's housing and social services, which is now community services. Got to get the title right. I guess that means you get new business cards, eh, Anne-Marie?
Yes. So.
And I'm sure, Buck, you'll authorize that. Anyway, we were going to start getting into the whole different types of housing that are available in the county. Buck, do you want to lead off?
So sure. It's interesting. At the beginning of this term of council, what we were hearing from everyone, from people, was the two priorities were housing, affordable housing, and transportation. It's interesting now, transportation has sort of fallen a little bit down. Why? Because we have the gray transportation route in place. But in terms of housing, the need, continues. It's a prevailing issue. We've been hearing it every single day of this term. So housing, though, there's a range of need. And it's important for people to understand that some people need attainable housing, which means I work, I make a decent living, but I still can't really afford to buy something or to get into something that I can actually afford to have. So we need to look at that. But we also have people who need affordable housing, which is what the county provides. I think we have about 1,000 units that we run. And then we have some people who need housing with supports because they've got some extra issues. So they don't just need housing, but they need some additional supports, which is where these social services workers are going to come in handy. And then there's another group of people who need what's called supportive housing. And I'm going to let Anne-Marie discuss the difference between housing with supports versus supportive housing.
Certainly. So within our own Grey County housing, and also in other types of housing around Grey County, we have people that maybe require someone to come in a few times a week, once a day, in order to help them to maintain their housing. So they may need supports with daily living skills. It could be that their mental health. It could be physical health. So there's some type of support that they need, but they're still able to maintain their independence, live on their own in an independent unit. And then we have some people that require that 24-hour 24/7 or pretty close to it supports. So they may require somebody to be there all the time. An example of that locally could be our Women's Center, where they're getting programming and they're staying in second stage housing, or it could be maybe Second Ave Lodge, where they're providing that laundry and meals and other support. So those are the two types of supports that you could find in supportive housing. Supportive housing is not something that the county provides directly. It's not a service that we're mandated to provide, but it's certainly something that we help out a lot within the community. We fund a number of housing with related support, so that would be that 27 hour services, and we work with a lot of our community partners in order to bring in their services into our housing too.
Now, what, obviously, though, the issue is growing. It's not something that is stagnant. How would you say that, and this is perhaps a political question, Buck, how's the funding for all of this?
So, the problem is persistent, and that kind of a persistent problem requires a long-range sort of view. So I'm so proud of our council. A year ago, I challenged the council to put affordable housing on the very top. And council responded in a very big way. One is by establishing an affordable housing fund. So it's a fund that we're going to deposit, I'll call it found monies. So if we sell off an asset and as a result of that, we come into some money, go into that affordable housing fund. But in addition, starting this year, we implemented the 1% levy going directly to affordable housing. So as a result of those initiatives, in the first year alone, $1.1 million raised, and that's going to continue onward. So it's not a one-year thing, because a persistent problem requires persistent and concentrated effort. Is that going to solve the problem? Absolutely not. But I hope that people see from that we recognize that this is something that's in our face. We see you, we hear you. We're doing what we can, and we're going to continue to work more to bring other partners. Of course, there's a role for the feds. There's a role for the province. There's things that we can do. There's things that our partner organizations can do. So we hear you, and we are responding in a meaningful way.
Now, Anne-Marie, I noticed that Grey County has purchased, or in the process of purchasing, a building to offer supportive housing. And that's on 14th Street, Noah Sound, if I'm not mistaken. What's the progress on that so far?
We actually just took possession last week of the building. So that's where we're at. Basically looking at doing the renovation and having the renovation into 12 apartments with some area for offices and for programming, whatever might be required, and hoping to have that completed by early 2023.
So we can look for construction on that part of 14th Street?
It's all internal. It's all renovations inside. Yeah.
Good.
No delays.
No delays. Excellent. Excellent. Now, there's also some construction being planned around St. Francis Place, is there not? There is. And that was part of our affordable housing plan and our task force that we have. And our task force has been excellent in, providing us opportunity for some of our nonprofits. A lot of the funding that we receive from the province is geared towards nonprofits. So when we took a look at our fund, and between the money that we were having from our fund, our affordable housing fund, and the province, we put together a plan, affordable housing plan, and part of that plan was working with our nonprofits to get them to a point where they're ready to build when funds come along. In St. Francis, so our Lutheran Social Services were wanting to do a build and had been inquiring for some time. And so the county is providing $3 million towards a build for seniors. And that should be starting at some point this year. Now, will that be a tower like the existing St. Francis Place, or will that be a slightly different design, or do you know yet?
Don't know yet, but it will be a slightly different design. I believe there's 2 properties there that it will be spread over. So, and they're looking at around 32, 35 units around that. So it'll be smaller than St. Francis Place for sure.
Well, certainly I know over the years that has been that whole area and that community has been a very unique community in and of itself, which, and with lots of services all there, right within a couple of blocks, it does make common sense. It does make good sense to do a construction project for that kind of housing right there. So glad the land is available and that you've got a good partner.
Definitely. They've been a great partner for years, and looking at the majority of the units being affordable, mixed in with some market units. And also can't forget that we have our partners at Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit that should have their 60-unit build, in which the county is supporting, also complete this spring.
Yes, we can't forget that. That's that. There's quite a number of units up in that whole area up off 9th Street East. So it's good to see as well. Are there any other building plans across the county that you can tell us about?
I can, or I guess.
You want to talk about that, Buck? Seeing as it's an election year.
Certainly. There's, again, our affordable housing plan that we developed through our Affordable Housing Task Force has listed a number of opportunities, one of them being possibly a seniors building with the redevelopment of our long-term care in Durham, and the other one is looking at, in Dundalk, the redevelopment of one of our existing rent geared to income homes into a larger apartment building. So those are certainly some plans. And also we are working with our municipalities to look at any surplus lands that might be available and getting those ready so that if there's opportunity, that they could be easily developed into affordable housing.
Yeah, that's one of those little things, but you never know what the possibilities are. It's just possibilities keep coming up, so to speak, and you never know where one will appear, because someone may have some property somewhere. And Bucky, as a lawyer, you probably are familiar with that particular model. You never know. Someone's going to walk in and say, I want to sell this. Are you interested?
Yeah, I think what we're learning, David, is the key is to be shovel ready. So always have feelers out and ideas going. And even if you're not ready to proceed with it, you'd say, if only we had this type of funding, we would be ready to go. So when the government comes up and you see these opportunities and there's funds, they're looking around and they're saying, who's got a project that we can run with right away? And we say, we do. So it's about that. It's about always having your nose to the ground to see what the opportunities are, and to do the pre-planning and all that work that's ready, so that when the funding comes along, you say, put your hand up and say, we're shovel ready.
That's right, yes. Now, what role does the municipality have, the lower tier have in all of this? County is what was called the upper tier. What role does lower tier have in housing?
So that's a big debate, David. You'll well know that lower tiers will say, why are we involved with hospitals? That's a provincial mandate. But we know fully well that if we don't get involved, then we don't get certain things happening locally. And the same can be said about housing. A lower tier municipality can rightfully say, that's not our mandate. That's maybe a county responsibility. And maybe the county says, well, frankly, that's more of a federal and provincial level. But, if we all sort of point the finger somewhere else, nothing gets done. So we've got to be willing to say, what role can we play in assisting? So, for example, can lower tier municipalities help us in terms of looking at their inventory? Are there some properties that you have that if we could find other partners, we could leverage, hey, there's some land here that the lower tier municipality might be prepared to make available. And with other input, we could actually get some things done. So I think there is a role for virtually everyone in this, and it's about continuing to look for those innovative ideas, to look for those opportunities, and then pressuring for the funding. And when the funding comes along, be ready.
Sure. Now, I was noticing that in the media this week, there was this week when we're actually taping this is also the week that the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, Roma, actually met. And Grey County had a deputation, I believe, did it not?
Yeah, we had several deputations. Which one are you referring to, David?
You got the floor.
So, well, I mean, quite frankly, one really exciting one that happened just yesterday was on hydrogen optimized, which is locally here in Owen Sound, and the possibilities for hydrogen in the future as part of the mix of a greener world is really exciting. And we've got a really innovative company here locally. Now, it was really nice to meet with the Minister of Energy and to present this and to have him say, yeah, we know all about hydrogen optimized, and we would love to see that, things happen there. We'd love to discuss with you the possibility of a pilot. So that's really cool. I just love being able to go to these delegations with ministers to continue to press for things that are important to us. Another one was around the need for early childhood educators. Big problem. We're having a struggle recruiting people for those positions, and we're not alone. Everybody's having that struggle, it seems. So putting our heads together with the province to see, what can be done, what role can they play in helping us as we struggle with this problem. That's the idea of these delegations.
Anything to do with rural broadband, which has always also been another common issue?
So, David, there's good news, bad news on the broadband front. The good news is that the province, and we have to give them kudos, have dedicated $4 billion to expansion of broadband infrastructure in Ontario, which, by the way, is much bigger than the feds. So for all of Canada, Ontario is contributing more. So I'll give the government credit for that. The challenge is that they said, I'm with SWIFT. So SWIFT put forward a model for SWIFT 2.0, and the province says, thank you, nice model, but we've got some other ideas. We're going to roll out our own plan. And SWIFT has said, wonderful. At the end of the day, all we want is robust, affordable broadband for everyone. And nothing is better than fiber, so we prefer to see as much fiber projects as possible. So we're still struggling to understand really what the government's, the province's plan is. They're saying that they're hoping to have everywhere they have that minimum access of 50/10 by 2025. So they've told us that. But the devil will be in the details, and the details that we've seen so far causes us some concern, let's just say, without getting right into the weeds of it. But bottom line, we'll support them, because as long as they say that they're going to move ahead with robust, affordable broadband, we support that. In rural communities, though, the concern is that there needs to be a level playing field for the big ISPs, the internet service providers, as well as the small ones. And in rural communities, we think that the solution will be from those medium-sized and small-sized internet service providers. Will the rules allow for them to have an equal opportunity as the big players? We're concerned about that. We don't think so. And frankly, if we're going to get to those last mile projects, the projects that will run along a rural road and service 6 farms, that's not going to be of interest to, to TELUS and Bell. but the small and medium-sized internet service providers will certainly get that done. That's been the experience of SWIFT today. So we want to really support those smaller internet providers as much as possible.
And we do have a number of them here in Grey County.
We do. And they've done terrific work, by the way. They've really stepped up. About 60% of the SWIFT projects was from small internet service providers.
Sure. So you came away from Roma feeling quite positive then?
Yeah, Roma has been interesting. You know, it's an election year, right? So the buzz is always a little bit different in an election year. But I can tell you that, you know, the government continues to make these delegations important. You know, you get your 10 minutes, right? So you really have to sort of concentrate your message very carefully. But, you know, for the most part, I see people who care and they listen, and they may not always do what we want. But I think they're looking for the echoes. If I'm hearing it from this person and this person and this person and this person, well, maybe that says to me that I ought to actually act on this. If you're a lone wolf, the likelihood of getting things done isn't very high.
And that's where communication with your colleagues in other municipalities is tremendously important as well.
You got it. You got it. Yes.
Sure. So, well, it's we are gearing up for that election, that's for sure, and we'll be talking with Bill Walker at least once more before that election happens, and we'll just wait and see. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Buck, you're back before the next election too, so we'll have more chance to talk about that and perhaps the impacts on Grey County. But are there other issues from at the county level that you are excited about as you begin I hate to say it, the last year of this county's term?
Yeah, so you will know, David, from my inaugural speech that I've encouraged council this year. So our efforts on affordable housing will continue. But in addition to that, we're going to be focusing in a big way on mental health and addictions. And I think in the very near future, you'll hear council talking more about what role we can play in the next few months. We're not going to solve the problem immediately, but can we get the ball rolling on some key initiatives that will be pivotal, you know, because momentum is everything. Can we get the momentum going on key issues? Because, you know, coming out of the pandemic, I think we're going to see a tsunami of need in mental health and addictions. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to us addressing those issues, working with our partners. Again, collaboration is the name of the game here, but very exciting what will come, I think.
And certainly those are issues that are central to our life here in Grey and Bruce.
Yes, well, when you look at the loss of lives to opioid addiction over the last few years compared to even COVID, then it's stark, it's in your face. It says, hello, I'm here and I need attention. So we're going to give it some highlight and take action.
So the opioid epidemic will get some focus at the county level, and I presume through public health as well.
Yes, yeah. And not just the county and public health, but there are a number of partners. And by the way, it's not to say we're doing nothing right now. There's a lot that we're doing. And we're at the table, we're at many tables. But it's certainly, you know, COVID got its deserved attention over the last few years. And I'm hoping that we can pivot some attention and resource now to mental health and addiction, because it's really needed.
Will that primarily be the work of public health then? Because that is part of their mandate, is it not?
Well, it is, yeah. And I wouldn't say that it will be primarily public health, although I think public health will certainly be at the table and will play a role. But there are many other players who are at the table as well. So we, as a county, are going to try to bring together those partners. And we want to identify, because we've literally got about 8 months really left to get something done. So realistically, what can we do over the next 6 or 7 months to get the ball rolling on some really important initiatives around mental health and addiction? That's going to be the task for, a committee, I think, that will be created very soon. Sure,
and that's so important, because, as you say, we've had a significant loss of life because of the opioid addiction, and there is a lot more to be done. Yes, and there's some really, really good people who are expert and who will be able to hopefully tell us,
here's where you need to start, or here's the low-hanging fruit. Here's where you're going to get the best bang for your dollar. This you can do realistically over the next 6 to 7 months. That's what we're really interested in hearing.
Would you say that we are moving out of COVID and towards some of those more regular concerns in our community then?
Yes, I think that our public health is justifiably occupied with COVID needs. But as we pull out, we will need to quickly pivot, because the need is growing and probably exacerbated by COVID, to be quite frank. Some people, under stress will treat themselves with drugs or alcohol, and that's really sad. So yes, I think public health has a big role to play in this, but I don't want to underplay the role of our other community partners who are doing an amazing job and will continue to do so, and will hopefully give us some guidance about what we can do. Where is that low-hanging fruit over the next few months?
Because there's people like the paramedics, like the hospitals, like CMHA, like various other support programs. Yes, all of those things that are all part of it. And if you've been around Grey Bruce for any length of time, as all three of us have, the problems are changing. I mean, I think of 10 years ago, we had the crystal meth task force. Well, crystal meth is only a part of the problem, we're realizing, and it's changing.
Yeah, so, and it's morphed into, I remember being on that team and having the debate about should we include alcohol in this discussion, and now it's just morphed to the Grey Bruce drug strategy, right? Right.
And it's recognizing the umbrella, or the tent, to use another metaphor, is a lot bigger than we ever imagined.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Anne-Marie, are you looking forward to the next, dare I say it, cycle of events? I mean, we're in an election year, and policies may change. And are you ready for the? Dare I say it? Are you ready for the pivot?
We are, and I think having worked through many changes in government, the key components stay the same, and our mandates and our services stay the same too. So there might be tweaks here and there, but I think that my staff are pretty dedicated to the people that they work with, and when it comes right down to it, that's who we're here for. So what we do for people doesn't change, no matter what government's in charge.
And that's probably a really good definition of what our public service does and our public servants do. No matter who's in power, no matter who is the government of the day, you're looking after people. And that's your job.
It is.
Now remember that, Buck. You just remember that. Well, I want to thank the both of you for being a part of Politically Speaking today. It's been excellent to hear from you both. And Buck, we have you back, I think, sometime in March. So we'll have further conversation about the county. Anne-Marie, best wishes for your new position. And who knows, we may be talking again. I don't think this issue is going to go away.
No.
And friends, thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. We'll talk again.
call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Venus and Serena gonna shake up this world.
I think you might just have the next Michael Jordan.
Oh no.